A warm welcome to everyone joining us from all over the world. We're here ready at nighttime for the very final stage of TCR European Endurance. We are here at the Misano World Circuit and we are ready for stage number 2 for TCR European Endurance. We are ready at nighttime for what is an amazing final part of the 2025 season. We are ready to crown our champions. We are bound to see some new overall champions that are ready to take the track and make it their own here in Misano. Let's have a look at the situation so far, and most importantly, the starting grid for stage number 2. We have Salvatore Tavano on pole position for Bimmerwerk Motorsport. The Italian driver has won the previous round in Vallelunga together with Eric Scalvini, and he has taken the race lead after a perfect stage number 1. They are now the championship leaders and looking to clinch the title tonight. Finishing in the top 2 in the overall standings will be enough for them to do so, provided that Senna Somerville does not win. However, he will have to make over a deficit of over a minute from the results of stage number 1. In fact, we have to remember that the results of the official race are going to be created by the sum of the times of stages 1 and 2. So Salvatore Tavano is on pole position. Ibrahim Okiai starts in second place. He has been phenomenal in the opening stage of this weekend with the Gen 1 Audi of Texaco Team AMS looking to clinch the class title and fighting for what would be their first ever podium finish this year in TCR European Endurance in the overall standings. Third is Senna Somerville, who is still fighting for what will be an incredible overall title for the DSG car, though of course he is focused on the DSG standings. He's currently in the lead of those as well. And he's going to have to fight against Tudor Motorsport with Eduardo Maccari and Emilio Damante in fourth place. Then we have Bernard Stitz starting in fifth. He is a new entry in TCR European Endurance this weekend, together with Alessio Alcidi for Tudor Motorsport. Then it's Berk Kalpaklioglu and Roberto Armogida, another new entry, this time for Faro Racing in 7th and 8th, respectively. And then Eric Brigliadori, the former championship leader, contact in stage number 1 after the first 2 laps with Eric Scalvini and Salvatore Tavano put him out of contention. It's going to be so hard for him to fight for the title today, but he's still going to try nonetheless. And we are ready for what looks to be the start of stage number 2 here in Misano, with Salvatore Tavano in first position, Ibrahim Okiai right alongside him in second. As we go green right about now, it's been a great getaway for Salvatore Tavano and even better for Senna Somerville, who's already looking to clinch second place ahead of Ibrahim Okiai as we go towards turn number 1. And Salvatore Tavano is still in the lead. And look at Eric Brigliadori together with BF Motorsport. He looks to have done such an amazing job at the race start. He seems to be up in the top 5 already, but we'll have to wait and see for that as we are about to get closer to the second sector with Salvatore Tavano still in the lead ahead of Senna Somerville and Ibrahim Okiai, who looks to have now kept third position, but has dropped from second to third in the very opening stages of this stage number 2, with Senna Somerville having an amazing getaway as the cars now go towards Curva Quercia and actually into turn number 8. It looks to be Eric Brigliadori, who's already up into second position. An amazing recovery from the 2024 overall champion and brother of former championship leader Yuri, as Eric now is into second place and within striking distance of Salvatore Tavano. These two lit the track up in qualifying, setting the 2 fastest times of the entire race weekend, separated by just 67 thousandths of a second. Therefore, it's going to be very interesting to see who comes out on top. But watch out for the fight that is not ensuing for what looks to be 5th place, with Alessio Alcidi and Berk Kalpaklioglu trying to fight as hard as they can in order to get towards top 5. Meanwhile, we are across the start-finish line for our leaders, Salvatore Tavano and Eric Brigliadori in first and second, the latter setting the fastest lap of the race 1:45.1, of course, being the very first lap of the race. And now look at Eric Briadori looking to the inside of Salvatore Tavano and immediately getting the lead of stage number 2. This is exactly what BF Motorsport needs to do. However, this is also exactly what Salvatore Tavano has to do. Let them through. It's not against them that they have to fight, especially for the overall title, because it is going to be Senna Somerville who poses the biggest threat to his Vimevec Motorsport teammates. Naturally, the Austrian team will look to try and get the team's title as well, which would be perfectly fine with them, of course, and that will also be the great road for such an incredible season. First year in TCR European Endurance for them, and already such an incredible driver pairing with Calvini and Tavano in car number 6, but also with the hidden talent of Senna Somerville in the Jamaican colored DSG Cupra. They became the first team rocking this car to success in TCR European Endurance history. And that is by far the biggest accomplishment for them, as now we move towards the finish line with Eric Briadori in the lead, a 1:43.4, which was 2.3 seconds faster than Salvatore Tavano. But that is, of course, due to the fact that Tavano does not need to push whatsoever. He doesn't need to make any mistakes. Just has to keep it simple and bring it home. There is Eric Brigliadori, who for the first time in the history of the championship has created an all-brotherly pair. They're not the only ones this weekend, however, since Alessio and Alessandro Alcidi are also doing the same down at Tudor Motorsport in the DSG standings. They're currently 6th in that regard. And meanwhile, we see cars coming towards Quercia corner, and that is Edoardo Maccari being super close to the back of Senna Somerville, as Senna looks to defend the DSG lead. This is such an important race to clinch the title in the DSG standings. Somerville needs to finish at least in 2nd position in this stage. Even if Edoardo Maccari and Emilio Damante were to win this one, he would have enough of an advantage to clinch 1st place. Naturally, however, it will be Somerville's desire to go out with a bang and win in this final race. Meanwhile, here is a fight that we have seen throughout this race already, and that is Berk Carpaglioglu against one of the Volkswagens. This time it is Alessio Alcidi, whereas before it was the one of Faro Racing with Roberto Armogida currently at the wheel. He is the teammate of Leonardo Cupari in this weekend that marks the return of Faro Racing to the starting grid of TCR European Endurance after being part of the field in Mugello, the opening race of the season. Now, the fight for the DSG lead sees Emilio Damante's teammate, Edoardo Maccari, ready to pounce on Senna Somerville. He looks to have stronger pace than his rival, as he showed in the second half of stage number 1 when he was behind the wheel, closing down the gap but failing to overtake Somerville at the end. And now Somerville has to defend position on Maccari. However, there was nothing to do there, with Edoardo Maccari going through at Quercia and up into 3rd position, but crucially, the DSG lead. That was a little too easy for Maccari, meaning that Somerville is probably driving a bit safely and safer than his rival, knowing that a 2nd place would be enough to clinch the DSG title as well as the team's crown. And of course, this is a race of epic proportions for Vimevec Motorsport, as the Austrian team bids to become the successor of Texaco Team AMS in the team standings. The Turks still within a shot of clinching the team's crown, though they would need a miracle to let that happen. And so far, that is not looking likely. Meanwhile, Eric Brigliadori is across the start-finish line. A 1:42.2 for him. Meanwhile, Tavano is lapping in a 1:45.1, which is quite a lot slower than his rival. Though, as we said before, and as we'll say again, during this race, he does not need to push as hard as he can. He just needs to bring the car home to clinch the title. In the overall standings, that is. And of course, in the sequential Gen 2 category, where he is leading together with Eric Scalvini after what has been a triumphant season for them, despite a slow start with technical issues preventing them from winning in Mugello and then taking them out of contention for said win in Slovakia too. However, the Cupra has worked very hard on reliability, with Limmenberg Motorsport showing signs of improvement throughout the season. On that, it has been a flawless performance in Vallelunga for Scalvini and Tavano, who took their maiden race win. And just earlier today, they took the 5th stage win of their season, the 3rd consecutive one, which shows just how important their latest run of form has been. Meanwhile, we see now Berk Karpaklioglu with Alessio Alcidi, and behind them Bernhard Stitz, the Austrian driver, is the very first one of his country to drive in TCR European Endurance. Though Renauer isn't the first Austrian team, as Limmenberg Motorsport got that honor back in Mugello earlier this year for round number 1. Though it's great to see Renauer making an appearance this year, hoping and waiting for them to be on the starting grid next year, maybe in 2026. And so far, Stitz has shown good consistency. He's finished in 5th position in the opening stage. It was a bit of a slower start to stage number 2, but he is been running now, looking to fight against Karpaklioglu and Alcidi, 2 DSG entries that are currently in 4th and 3rd in class, respectively. Front, however, it's Eric Brigliadori looking to be the fastest driver. And he is currently holding down P1 with a 9-second gap over Salvatore Tavano. And Brigliadori is doing exactly what he needs to do, push as hard as possible, and then hoping for something to happen to Salvatore Tavano, though fortunately for him, Tavano has already completed 6 laps. Well, he's about to complete the 6th one. And that means that he has already done more laps than BF Motorsport has in stage number 1, which means that it's unlikely that Brigliadori, together with his brother, will be able to beat them. Therefore, BF Motorsport is officially out of contention for the overall title, something that we had basically already learned after stage number 1, but this is the official confirmation. Meanwhile, battles ensued throughout the entire racetrack, with Bernhard Stitz now following closely both Berk Karpaklioglu and Alessio Alcidi. Eric Brigliadori's fight and determination definitely has to be praised. He was down in last place at the start and then turned it around with a phenomenal performance in the first few laps. We also have to think of the overall classifications. As we know, they are given by the sum of the times between stages 1 and 2. And so far, Salvatore Tavano is in the lead, with Edoardo Maccari just ahead of Senna Summerbell. 2 are fighting hard. They were only separated by 1.5 seconds after stage number 1, which means that it will be a very close fight for who gets second position in the overall standings, as well as the DSG lead. However, Sinan Çiftçi, together with Ibrahim Okiai, may have a say in that, as he is still part of the fight. And as we saw in stage number 1, Ibrahim Okiai was mighty quick during his driving stint. Okiai will take over from Chifchi at the halfway stage, so we'll have to wait and see whether he can do the same or not. Meanwhile, here is the fight between Alcidi, Göktaş, and Bernard Stitz. The latter looking to make some inroads. He is currently still holding down 5th in the overall standings, summing the times of stages 1 and 2, though now he is currently in 8th position in stage number 2 itself. Let's not forget that we award points for both stages as well as the final race result. And that is a new feature of TCR European Endurance that has completely changed the way we approach each race weekend and has therefore ignited the championship battle, together with, of course, the rule that says that the worst result across the first 3 races will be discarded, as well as Misano having a 1.5 coefficient, meaning that points gathered here are 50% more valuable than the rest of the season. So we still have 41 minutes and 20 seconds left, not just in stage number 2, but in the entire season here in TCR European Endurance for the 2025 campaign. And Eric Brigliadori just crossed the start finish line, setting yet another low 143, a 143.198 to be exact. And that is a killer pace compared to Salvatore Tavano, who's of course only trying to bring the car home. He now crosses the line with a 145.2. Let's not forget he was lapping in the 142s in stage number 1, and he is the author of the fastest lap of the entire weekend, a 141.7 that he achieved in qualifying to secure pole position for Wimmerwerk Motorsport. Meanwhile, we now see the beautiful Hyundai Elantra of Bernard Stitz. She is looking very racy on Berk Kalpaklioglu and Umut Göktaş. The latter now in the car. As now almost up the inside goes Bernard Stitz, but the move is unfortunately not happening as of right now. This is instead car number 1. Ibrahim Okiai together with Sinan Çiftçi at the wheel of that specific entry for Texaco Team AMS, a team that has been a staple of TCR European Endurance. They have been here ever since the very beginning, and they are the only team in the history of the championship that has competed in every single race of TCR European Endurance since its beginning in 2024. They were the team's champions last year and had swept all titles when they last were here in Misano. They will be winning the Gen 1 classifications with Ibrahim Okiai and Sinan Çiftçi. They have won all 4 races, given especially that this one, they are the only drivers in the Gen 1 standings left, and therefore they are bound to take home the title, at least in the Gen 1 classifications. Of course, they tried to go back-to-back in the team's classifications too, but unfortunately for them, Wimmerwerk Motorsport is looking likely to clinch that title, as Salvatore Tavano is currently 2nd and Senna Somerville in 4th. But crucially, in the overall standings of the race in Misano, they are 1st and 3rd respectively, with Senna Somerville still having the chance to fight for 2nd position in the DSG standings. Now, the images once again on Alessio Alcidi, who is effectively training his defensive skills to the max in these first 16, 17 minutes or so, as he has kept Umut Göktaş and Bernard Stitz right behind him for the entirety of stage number 2 so far. He has looked promisingly good in defense, but now both the Texaco team AMS Audi and the Hyundai Elantra of Renault Motorsport are looking more and more dangerous in his mirrors, as now Göktaş tries to look to the outside, though does not work. And therefore he stays behind. Well, this is also a very nice image with 3 different cars fighting for the same position on the same piece of tarmac, just showing how competitive the grid really is, no matter the make of the car. And you can see the glowing discs. Brake-wise for Umut Göktaş in the Texaco Team AMS ESG entry, car number 2. The car that was fighting for an overall podium back in Slovakia when they narrowly missed out, and same can be said for the Gen 1 entry. They finished 4th in both Mugello and Vallelunga. Meanwhile, we see the car that is currently in 2nd position in the overall standings, but crucially leading the overall race classification, which takes into account the sum of the times of stages 1 and 2. And that is Salvatore Tavano in the ever so competitive Cupra. Now going into the final sector of the race, as he looks to get ready for the pit stop, which will happen in just about 6 minutes. At least that's when the pit window opens. That will be the very last time that teams are allowed to touch the cars this season during a competitive procedure. And that will also be a super crucial moment to understand whether or not drivers could see their positions change before coming back out on track. Let's also have a little bit of a recap of the classifications up until now. In stage number 2, Eric Brigliadori is leading after 12 laps of racing. He has been absolutely phenomenal and is currently in first with a 23-second gap over Salvatore Tavano in 2nd position. Third is Edoardo Maccari in the DSG lead as well, ahead of this man right here, Senna Summerbell, who's 4th overall and 2nd in class. 5th is Sinan Cifci in the Gen 1 Audi for Texaco Team AMS with Alessio Alcidi in 6th position. Berk Karpaklioglu is currently watching on as Umut Göktaş is in 7th place, with Bernard Stitz in 8th and Roberto Armogida in 9th position. These were the results, the current results for stage number 2, but let's also have a look at the overall standings that take into account both stages here in Misano, and Salvatore Tavano is leading in that regard with a 90-second gap over Edoardo Maccari, who is just ahead of Senna Summerbell, and therefore the DSG class is still up for grabs for this race. However, 2nd position would still be enough for Senna Summerbell to take home the class title at the end of the season. Sinan Cifci is in 4th, together with Ibrahim Okiai for Texaco Team AMS, with Bernard Stitz in 5th position, and the Alcidi brothers, Alessio and Alessandro, in 6th. Umut Göktaş, together with Berk Karpaklioglu, is in 7th, with the pair of Leonardo Cupari and Roberto Armogida in 8th. And unfortunately, then, Yuri Brigliadori is forced to finish last in the overall standings, together with his teammate and brother Eric. Meanwhile, here is Eric Scalvini, speaking of Eric's, trying to get ready as the pit window will open in about 2 minutes' time. That will be the most important moment of the race. Granted that Eric Brigliadori is still in the lead. However, anything can still happen here in TCR European Endurance. This is the very last stage of the very last race of the year. And once again, just like in 2024, we are ready to crown our champions in Misano under the stars and the moon, which is such an incredible way of rounding out what has been so far a very entertaining season that has left us wondering who is going to take the titles home. Meanwhile, we go with the images looking for the ever so competitive Audi of Edoardo Maccari and Emilia Damante. And Maccari himself has made a huge step in the right direction after the start of the season. He's been super competitive in both Vallelunga and here in Misano. And that is certainly a good omen for Tudor Motorsport as they are looking to clinch the DSG win. It will be their second consecutive win in class this year after doing so in Vallelunga too. But unfortunately, that could also not be enough to win the DSG title, as it would be Senna Somerville who would be to take it if positions will stay like this. And here is Senna Somerville in the DSG Cupra. He's definitely looking to secure that second position in this stage, which would be also enough to clinch the title. His gap over the nearest rival is on Alessio Alcidi. That is at around 19.4 seconds, but that is only in the stage classifications, because in the actual race standings, which take into account the sum of the times between stages 1 and 2, he is still in third, but the gap is over 50 seconds on Alessio Alcidi. And that would mean that Senna Sarabel would become the DSG champion at the end of the season. But we have to focus now on the race. And as we can now see, drivers are starting to come into the pit lane. First up is Sinan Chifchi with Ibrahim Okiai ready to jump in. There goes car number 1 with Chifchi stepping out and giving Ibrahim a chance of continuing this race. Into the pits goes car number 1, and same will be said for race leader Eric Brigliadori, or stage leader, I should say, as his brother Yuri is into the car now. Oh, same helmet, basically same build. It's very difficult to get the two apart when they're wearing a helmet, but as we know, the drivers who have started stage number 1 will have to finish stage number 2, and that is Yuri Brigliadori. Meanwhile, into the pits come who are right now the drivers fighting for a spot on the DSG podium. That is Roberto Armogida in the Faro Racing Volkswagen Golf, currently in 9th position, the 5th in class, still within a shot of getting time. And here is Ibrahim Okiai getting ready to come out of the pit lane, making sure that the teams respect the minimum pit lane time. Here in Misano, it is 2 minutes and 45 seconds, which is quite a long time, but drivers need to make sure that they take less time than that. Sorry, more time than that to stay between the start of the pit lane and the finish of the fast lane. Let's also not forget that those drivers who are racing solo this weekend, and these are Senna Sommerbell and Bernard Stitz, they will be serving 5 more seconds as a rule states. Therefore, their minimum pit time is 2 minutes and 50 seconds, which is why Sommerbell is likely to lose a bit of time during the pit stops. That is to be expected. Meanwhile, as car number 1 leaves the pit lane, car number 3 is getting ready to do the same. Yuri Brigliadori now in the BF Motorsport Audi car that has held the championship lead for so long after what has been a super consistent season for them. But it's unfortunately looking like a disaster in the final race of the season. They had taken home, of course, considering every single weekend, 2 second places in the overall standings, both in Mugello and Slovakia Ring, and a 3rd place in Vallelunga, which was dropped by the team that was fighting for the overall title without having won a single stage, let alone race. The best results being 2nd in stage number 2 in Mugello and stage number 1 in Slovakia. As speaking of Slovakia, the overall race leader, race winner of the Slovakia ring round, Senna Sommerbell, comes into the pit lane. The same can be said for Tudor Motorsport with the Alcidi brothers, as Alessio will give Alessandro a chance to finish this race. And soon enough, Edoardo Maccari will pull in for Tudor Motorsport as well, giving Emilio Damante car for the rest of the race. Meanwhile, Umut Göktaş is in the pit lane. There, Karpagloglu getting ready to jump into the car. As now Bernard Stitz moves on and he's now into 3rd position for an hour motorsport with Salvatore Tavano and Edoardo Maccari yet to pit in this race. They will be looking to do so in the very last few minutes of the pit window, which will then give us the classifications ahead of the final 22 minutes or so of racing here in Misano and in the 2nd ever season of TCR European Endurance. Here is Edoardo Maccari, who was leading the DSG standings. He will be helped out of the car by Emilio Damante, and his driving duties for the season are officially over, as Damante will take over and finish this race for him. The same can be said for Eric Brigliadori, who was made his season debut actually this weekend. He was unfortunately unable to drive in stage number 1 after Yuri had to retire after the end of lap 2. This, meanwhile, is Bernhard Stitz into the pit lane for an hour motorsport. The Austrian team who's changing the front tires. Let's not forget, teams have an obligation of changing at least 2 tires every single pit stop, with only 3 mechanics being allowed to work on the car, with 1 wheel gun, which slows the pit down. But of course, they have plenty of time, given that the minimum pit stop time from when they enter the pit lane to when they exit it, it's 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Meanwhile, here is Salvatore Tavano in the Cupra Leon competition of Wimmerwerk Motorsport, the overall race leader, as Tavano climbs out of the car. And Eric Scalvini is bound to get in They were second in the stage standings so far, behind Yuri and Eric Brigliadori, who have retained their lead when they came out of the pits, compared to, of course, those who have pitted already. And they are fully expected to jump Tavano and Scalvini as well. Question will be, can Emilia Damante come in front of Senna Somerville, at least after the pit stop? The answer should be yes, given that they had around a 4-second gap over Somerville, and the Jamaican has 5 more seconds to spend inside the pit lane, as per the rulebook, given that he's racing solo, compared to Damante and Macari, of course, sharing the car. In just a few seconds, Bernhard Stitz will leave his pit box, as Renault Motorsport will be done with pit stop duties for the season. Let's not forget, this is their first ever weekend in TCR European Endurance. We're very glad to have them compete here in Misano. Hopefully, we'll see them again in the future. But so far, of course, their concentration is all on thinking about finishing this race in the best way possible. Same goes for the Cupra of Salvatore Tavano and Eric Scalvini. They were checking something in the engine bay on the Cupra number 6. So far, so good for Scalvini and Tavano, though we have seen this happen twice this year already, them being in the lead before technical issues halted their proceedings, but they will try not to let that into their minds as Eric Scalvini moves into the fast lane, looking to get out there once more. To try and at least fight, keep second position alive in the stage standings. He is, of course, still leading the race classifications, but this will give us a perfect moment to kind of see where everybody's at in the standings. Yuri Brigliadori is still in the lead with Eric Scalvini in second position. Third place seems to have gone back to Edoardo Macari, with Senna Somerville right behind him, together with Bernhard Stitz, though we will be waiting for official confirmation on that, since the gaps are yet to be adjusted after the pit stops. One thing that we know is that this car right here is leading the DSG class with Edoardo Macari, who's currently holding a 10-second lead over Senna Somerville, which is a great job for the Tudor Motorsport entry, with Emilia Damante now behind the wheel. This instead is Leonardo Cuppari. He is lapped, but still in the fight for a top 5 finish in the DSG standings. He's also 9th in the overall classifications. As we now move into the final 20 minutes of racing, not just of this race, but of this season too. Yuri Brigliadori is still in the lead with a hefty gap over Eric Scalvini. Scalvini fighting long and hard to keep his championship hopes alive. His main rival being Senna Somerville at this stage, though the Jamaican has to hope for something to happen to car number 6 if he wants to overthrow that lead in the championship, and that is definitely not what Vimevec Motorsport would want to happen, given that they are fighting hard for the team's title as well. Here is one of the Volkswagen Golfs that is present this weekend. Alessandro Alcidi now in the Tudor Motorsport entry of the Alcidi brothers, who's looking to climb on the DSG podium. He was third in stage number 1, and he is holding the same position now. Whereas on the other one is Leonardo Cuppari, who is now chased by the cameras. Car number 33, belonging to Faro Racing, a team that made its TCR European Endurance debut right here in Misano in 2024, when they took the DSG win as well as the overall podium. That was the penultimate round of the 2024 season. And then we saw them again at the start of this year in Mugello with two cars after coming to Misano for the final round of the 2024 season. And then it's very nice to see them again this weekend here in Misano in this lovely night atmosphere as we look to bring everything to a close this year. It has been such a wild ride to see everyone compete as hard as they can for every single class and overall titles. And this is Senna Summerbell. Meanwhile, he's looking to close the gap over Edoardo Maccari to try and take home the DSG win for this final race. With Tudor Motorsport still leading after Maccari's incredible first stint. Now Emilio Damante is in the car. Let's have a look at the pace that he has in the Audi. He was over the start finish line in a 148.3 in the previous lap, 147.2, however, for Senna Summerbell. So everything is far from over as Senna is looking to pounce in these final 15 minutes, give or take, of the season. The gap between the two of them was merely a second and a half after stage number one. Currently, Emilio Damante has what looks to be a 7.5-second gap over Senna Summerbell in the overall standings. He just needs to finish in front of him to clinch the win in this race, though even with the second place finish, Senna Summerbell would be the DSG champion. Here is Senna looking to lap Leonardo Cuppari as the latter pulls out of the way. Very sportsmanlike behavior from him, but we would expect nothing less. As Cuppari is driving his own race, currently in 9th position and 5th in the overall standings and DSG class, respectively. As in the lead, Yuri Bigliadori is trying to extend his advantage over Salvatore Tavano. He has dominated this second half of the race. But unfortunately for him, the retirement from stage number one is not enough. Still, he is trying to bring home the stage win. The gap now being 35 seconds over Salvatore Tavano. However, the Italian is holding second place steadily, which would be more than enough for him to clinch the overall as well as the Gen 2 titles. So far, so good then for Wimmerwagen Motorsport, who's also trying to look at the team standings. Vivek Motorsport so far dominating this final race of the season, which is everything but simple. And then, of course, he would need to continue to push this hard in order to try and at least get the team's title, which is something that Texaco Team AMS, for example, wanted to do, but unfortunately for them, it doesn't look like it at this particular stage. Wimmerberg has been way too good this year to let that title slip. 2 race wins for the team this season, with both cars actually getting winning spoils. Senna Summerbell took a historic victory in Slovakia, becoming the first DSG entry to win in the overall standings in a particular race. And then right after that in Vallelunga, it was Salvatore Tavano and Eric Scalvini who took home the spoils. And they're now looking to do the same, not just here in Misano, but for the entire championship as well. Little recap then of the situation. Yuri Brigliadori is still in the lead with a 35-second gap over Salvatore Tavano, who is steadily into second and in championship winning position. Edoardo Maccari is in third, with Senna Summerbell in fourth. Sinan Cifci and Ibrahim Okiai are fifth, ahead of Bernard Stitz, who's currently in sixth position. Seventh belongs to Alessandro Cidi, with Berk Karpakloglu in eighth, and Leonardo Cupari is currently in ninth. Those are the stage results so far. If we have a look at the combined results for this fourth and final race of the season, Salvatore Tavano is in the lead together with Eric Scalvini, just ahead of Davante Maccari in second. Third belongs to Senna Summerbell, who's 7 seconds behind Edoardo Maccari and Emilio Damante so far. Okiai and Cefci are in fourth, with Bernard Stitz in fifth. Sixth place belongs to the Alcidi brothers, ahead of Karpaklalu Göktaş, with Roberto Armogida in eighth and Yuri Brigliadori, together with his brother Eric, unfortunately in ninth position due to the retirement that they suffered in stage number 1. We have a little over 10 minutes to go. Actually, exactly 10 minutes right about now, with Yuri Brigliadori looking to keep his lead. I was also having a look at the pit stop times and noting a penalty for the overall race leaders, Salvatore Tavano and Eric Scalvini, as they were under the 2-minute and 45-second mark. They received a 13-second penalty because of that, but fortunately for them, that will not change anything in the standings. A little scary then for the number 6 Cupra, but thankfully nothing too serious, as he was able to keep the race lead despite a penalty, with Eric Scalvini in the car at this moment in time. That is instead Yuri Brigliadori, as we saw go through turn number 6. We also have to check track limits. So far, Umit Göktaş together with Berkar Bakloglu have been noted 3 times for an infringement. Let's not forget that at the 5th one, a penalty would come for those drivers. It would, of course, be a shame, but track limits are always something to talk about. given that this is the final race of the season, we will be signing all titles at the end of this one, meaning that we will be understanding who is going to take the crown in the overall standings, as well as every single class, the Gen 2, the Gen 1, and the DSG categories. Of course, the team's standings will also be decided, and the two driver trophies, the Gentleman Trophy, given to drivers, well, reserved to drivers older than 50 years old, and then the Junior Trophy for those who are under the age of 21. Those are already decided, with Ibrahim Okiai taking the Gentleman Trophy and Berk Kalpakloglu taking the spoils in the Junior Trophy. That will be an important prize for Texaco Team AMS, who will sweep the trophies once more. Unfortunately, they couldn't do the same with the titles, though they will be taking home the Gen 1 crown with Chifchi and Okiai. A little over 6 minutes left then, with Yuri Brigliadori still in the lead. Looking at the standings, I'm seeing Ibrahim Okiai come ever so closer to Senna Summerbell. Summerbell looks unable to close the gap down to Emilio Damante in time for him to fight for this race win in the DSG standings, though second position will be plenty enough for him to clinch the title. This man right here, Emilio Damante, has done everything in his power together with his teammate Edoardo Maccari to clinch that particular title, but unfortunately for him, it doesn't look likely unless Senna Summerbell was to lose a place in the DSG standings, though he's over a lap in front of the nearest rival, Alessandro Acidi. He can 100% let the Audi through, and that's exactly what he has done. No risks whatsoever for Senna Summerbell. There is no need to defend position that is not worth anything in the DSG standings. He knows that the overall title, it's not his to clinch, and therefore he has made way for Ibrahim Okiai and for Yuri Brigliador as well, who is lapping them as we speak. He's now started what should be the third to last or fourth to last lap. Be quite close with the stopwatch. The end of what will be 3 laps from now. Looking at the timesheets, there's also Berk Karpakloglu trying to close in on Alessandro Acidi for third position in the DSG standings, and he's looking likely to be close to Acidi at the end of the race. We're unsure whether or not he will have the time to make an overtake, but we'll find out soon enough in the next 4 minutes or so. As now Edoardo Maccari is looking to round out the final corner. We can see now on the start-finish straight, the cars looking to enter towards turn number 1. This is Emilio Damante getting ready to clinch the win in the DSG standings for this round in particular, but unfortunately looks to be slightly short of what he had to hope for in order to clinch the DSG title at the end of the season. Meanwhile, this is the track limits warning that we saw before, and so far they came for Karpakloglu Göktaş in car number 2, and now for car number 8 as well, Kari and Damante, who, however, still have one more track limit warning to go through before encountering a penalty, which will be disastrous for them, of course, so they will be looking not to do that in the next 3 minutes or so of racing. We're nearing the end of this race as well as the season itself, and we're getting ready to call the champions, which will then be received in Parc Ferme and at the podium celebrations, which will feature the prize giving ceremony too. As we now see the Audi of Yuri Brigliadori rounding out the final 2 corners, starting the penultimate lap of the race. Here it is, right outside of our commentary box, crossing the start-finish line and looking to start the penultimate lap of this race. It was honestly a flawless performance from Yuri and Eric Brigliadori today, at least in stage number 2. The same, unfortunately for them, cannot be said for stage number 1. We were not lucky enough to witness what would have been a phenomenal battle between the Brigliadori brothers and the pair of Scalvini Tavano. It was a straight fight to the flag to see who would come out victorious. But after 2 laps of intense fighting in stage number 1, contact ensued between the 2 of them, which left car number 3 stranded. Stewards had evaluated the contact and thought that Yuri Brigliadori was at fault, so no consequence was given for the other car, the Cupra number 6 of Salvatore Tavano and Eric Scalvini, which means that they were free to go and almost ready to clinch the title, which they have done now. They're about to start the last lap together with Yuri Brigliadori, who is the stage leader, but not the race leader. Looking at the sum of the times, it's going to be Salvatore Tavano and Eric Scalvini who are likely to take the win. They have a huge gap over Edoardo Maccari, who is in 2nd position. Sinan Cefci is in 3rd, looking together with Ibrahim Okiai to close down the gap on Maccari, but crucially to take the first ever overall podium, which would feature then 3 different cars of 3 different classes for the first time this year. So then we have become as close as ever to the end of the season, as now we start the very last lap of this race. The countdown has ended. The clock has struck 0. And Yuri Brigliadori is into the final lap of not just this race, but of this season too, with BF Motorsport looking to finally clinch a stage win. Surprisingly enough, this will be the very first one for them. As Yuri and Eric Brigliadori are bound to take those spoils. It's been an incredible season for them, actually, starting off with 2nd position in the overall standings in Mugello and repeating them at the Slovakia ring. Unfortunately, however, the earlier retirement for stage number 1 was too much for them, but still they were able to remediate with stage 2 success, as Yuri and Eric Brigliadori are the stage 2 winners here in Misano. And that is a phenomenal job from them. But unfortunately, it's not going to be enough to clinch the title, which will go to the next car that is about to cross the start-finish line after Bernard States does so right about now. And instead, it's going to be Salvatore Tavano and Eric Scalvini who round out the final corner of the race and of the season itself. We're waiting for them to come to the start-finish line. This is one of the Volkswagen's Golf. And here it is, the Cupra of Salvatore Tavano and Eric Scalvini as they become 2025 TCR European Endurance overall champions. A phenomenal job from Wimmerweg Motorsport, who takes the team title as well. Meanwhile, in the DSG standings, Edoardo Maccari and Emilio Davante have taken home the stage 2 victory ahead of Senna Summerbell, with Alessandro Alcidi just holding on to third. And in the overall standings, it is Salvatore Tamano and Eric Scalvini who take home the overall victory in front of Davante Maccari for their best ever result, with Sinan Cifci and Ibrahim Okiai finishing in third place by just 7/10 of a second. They missed out on second, but it will still be enough for their first ever overall podium this year. But there we have it. The season is officially over, and we have officially crowned the new overall champions, Salvatore Tavano and Eric Scalvini, for Wimmerwerk Motorsport, as car number 6 has won the overall title. They have done an amazing job to clinch that in style here in Misano. The team champions are Wimmerwerk Motorsport, who can also rejoice in the DSG standings, as Senna Summerbell has become the champion of the DSG category. The Gen 1 standings are instead won by Texaco Team AMS. They go back-to-back in Gen 1 after winning the title in 2024. And Ibrahim Okiai and Sinan Cifci were able to do so. And then last but not least, the trophies have gone to Berka Pakloglu in the junior trophy and Ibrahim Okiai in the senior, the gentleman class. Let's not also forget the sequential standings, the Gen 2, which have been won by Tavano and Scalvini as well. And that will be everything, as we are now watching the highlights of race number 2. I want to thank you for being with us for the entire season. I want to thank the series promoter, Mauricio Slaviero, the series coordinator, Emanuele Martese, the press officer, Antonio Caruccio, and everyone working behind the scenes to make everything possible this, not just this weekend, but this season in general. This has been a nutter pleasure for me to commentate on and to be part of this amazing journey that was the 2025 TCR European Endurance season from Daniele Spadi. It's everything from now, but see you guys next time. And thank you for being with us for this amazing season. Here are the highlights, and I want to thank you so much for being with us throughout 2025.